and welcome back to a personal code of conduct. My name is Dio, as usual. Last week, I was talking about having, abstaining as a young person in Nigeria, as a young person who doesn't want to participate in having sexual intercourse, and non-religious reasons not to do so. But the main thing I actually wanted to talk about was voluntary childlessness as a Nigerian, and I realized that I don't have I don't have the whole I need to research this, I need to look at this, I need to go to different points. I'm barely doing editing. This is going to be horribly edited as usual. So the main thing I need to focus on was research. As usual, I did not do any research. But I decided that instead of just pushing out my ideas, I'm going to do what I wanted to do, a reaction to certain already established ideas, and see that is this reason enough for me, because I don't feel like this is what I want to do with my life, or this is because I like children, I like them a lot, but I'm not sure if I want them for my own. And at first I was looking at this stuff. So basically the entirety of my research is the voluntary childlessness Wikipedia page, and it's just up to me to sit down and decide whether or not this particular reason or section, do I agree with this? Is this reason enough? Is this does this make enough sense for me to go through it and be this is enough, this is why I'm willing to go through a certain thing, this makes sense to me, so to speak. I feel this is going to be long because they're up to 60 reasons. When I went through the entire page, and towards the ending, I was just these reasons in general don't make sense for me, but I'm probably going to refute them and have them to suit either have them changed or be for me personally, this is not reason enough, I don't think it makes sense. Then I saw one section where I was okay, this totally applies to me, this is what I'm thinking about, this is what is calling, I think it was called antinatalism. I think that having children is inherently selfish. I do not think it's wrong, I think it's selfish. And that's why I'm always very surprised when they say that, oh, you do, those who do not want, do you know why I keep saying those rather than I? Because I'm still not sure. I'm 23, and I like to think I have till 45 to truly decide whether or not I'm going to have children. And for me, having children includes adoption. It doesn't necessarily have to mean genetic, popping them out of your vagina kind of vibes. Having children includes adoption for me. So in my own foundation, I keep saying Dio, in my own foundational knowledge, I'm just there I feel having children in the foundation of any beliefs of having children is inherently selfish. In a society like Nigeria, I know people have children to stay off number one, the economic reasons. We do not have a system in place where there's care for the elderly. So number one, to have somebody that is obligated to take care of you. Number two, to have free labor when they're old enough to do chores. Number three, to not be lonely. That I know it ties into the economic reasons of having someone else to take care of you and that kind of thing, but the loneliness of somebody having a family, in sense, deciding to marry, deciding to have children, it makes you realize that some people are obligated to do certain things for you because they are your family, in a sense. Wow, there's background noise, but I can't do anything about that. So here. I'm going to start with my disclaimer. I don't know whether to call it a disclaimer or whatever, but this is called a personal code of conduct. It is basically me trying to figure out my own pathways, me trying to have my own personal decisions. I'm not telling anyone how to live. I'm not telling anyone. I don't consider this advice. This is me trying to feel society, feel myself up, and try to realize, okay, this is how I'm going to live my life. This is the decisions I'm trying to make. This is the vibes I'm trying to achieve. And this is because in the end, as I go through this list and reasons, I feel there are some reasons, especially that are unique to being a third worlder, or being in Nigeria and being somebody in the third world. I feel in the third world, lol. I feel there are reasons that I will not be captured in that voluntary childless page. So like, and in my reactions to those stuff in the voluntary childlessness page, I would like probably try to extract some things that are unique to me as a sheltered young Nigerian, because the key thing is sheltered. I realize that I haven't experienced, I'm not rich by any means, neither am I poor. I haven't like experienced a real Nigeria, so to speak. I've gone to mid-grade private schools and high grade public schools. That's basically what I've gone to, like, for them. So like, I wouldn't say that I truly experienced what it means to be poor, but I also understand that as a middle class person in a third world country, I'm like at this like weird crossroads, and that is the viewpoint I always try to present, like being aware of people. I don't want to use the word beneath, like people of a lower socioeconomic background than you, and being also aware of the people above you, in quotes, like people of a far higher socioeconomic, just being like stuck in the middle. Your life isn't shitty. Then again, the question of what is a shitty life is subjective, because there are people who face depression when their lives are objectively fantastic. So like, it's not a question of that being in the middle, is like where I'm coming from. Like, I'm not just being in the middle, a sheltered individual in the middle, not just like any random person in the middle, just somebody who can pull themselves out but is hopelessly drowning with nowhere out as well. So like, yeah, that's my disclaimer in quotes. Let's be starting with like the first rule. I wonder if this is going to continue going on. The first rule is simply not wanting to have children. The burden of proof is not on child-free people to justify why they do not want to have children, but rather on others to justify why anyone should. I feel like I have determined why others want to have children, but I haven't determined why you do not want to have children. No, as I said before, that I feel like having children is selfish. Like the normal reasons, like economic reasons, the fear of loneliness, and what have you. Now wanting to have children, like I say I'm on the fence of that part. Like I don't have any drive to want children, neither, but I do not have any, what's the word? I do not have any like dislike, or I do not simply not want. I am indifferent to the idea of having children. I think that's like the look I want to continue with this podcast, like my indifference to the general idea. So it's like me being on the fence and trying to like decide which side of the fence I'm going to go on. And remember that, like I said earlier, that me having children also is included with like adoption and what have you. So like the whole, I feel like I've theorized why other people want children. That's the key thing, theory, because people will come up with reasons on why they want children, non-religious reasons, because it's easy to explain things away and be like, God told me to. So it's like people will come up with reasons why they want children, and I think it takes a lot for somebody to agree with me in a sense, somebody who wants children to agree with me in a sense that having children is inherently selfish and you're bringing a whole ass human being into this world without their consent. But like, people do that. That is how animals, and of which humans are one, procreate and continue to exist, the continuation of the species and what have you. But like, yeah, some people's reasons for not having children is simply having no desire to have them. Like their own desire is not wanting children, I guess. So that's their reason. Another one is lack of desire to perpetuate one family line or pass on one's genes. Like I said, in this kind of situation, I'm still indifferent because I consider adoption as like having children, so to speak, in a sense. So like, I don't really particularly care whether the child is being popped out from my vagina, but like, and it's not like I'm saying like I have a thing for like, I have a thing against my bloodline or what have you. I just don't feel anything. Like if I decide to have children, however they come, like whether I adopt them or they come out of me, either one. So next one, unwillingness to sacrifice one's own spare time and freedom of movement to raising and looking after children. I know I'm probably going to continue repeating this over and over and again. I think having children in and of itself is selfish. So if you are going, it's simply like you've made this decision, so that is your cross and you have to carry it. It's like, it's a simple like pay this, pay that, do this, do that, and you get that. Like, you've made the decision to have the children, then you have to make decisions to make time to raise them. And the key thing is that a lot of people still have children while deciding not. I feel like a lot of people that decide to not children, I'm saying to not have children, are people that are understanding of how it is to, like, the amount of effort it takes to properly raise a child. A lot of people have children and yet neglect them, and that's one thing that, like, is really, like, moving me towards adoption, in the sense that the ones that are coming into this world, are they well cared for? Are they well taken care of? Do they have hope or direction in their future, like, in that kind of situation? So, like, why bring more into the world when a lot of people are irresponsible? They are not. So I don't like it when it refers to it as unwillingness to sacrifice their own time. I think if you decide that you cannot make room for a child, not having children is a very responsible thing to do. Unlike some individuals that they are not willing to make time or sacrifice their happiness, and yet they still want children. So I feel like if you're not willing to sacrifice your happiness, you're not willing to, like, move forward, you're not willing to do all those things because you don't want to move your time, then you have no business having children. But a lot of people still have children even with their unwillingness, resulting in horribly raised children. So I think this reason for not wanting to have children is a very responsible it's like, I think it's in the mind of somebody who's responsible. Like, that's my opinion on that. But is it my reason? I just said that I feel this is like a consideration but not a reason, in a sense, being that if I do make the decision to pop out a child, is it the responsible thing to make time for that child? And I feel like this is a nice, like, side effect of not having children. Like, you just have more time for yourself, or unfortunately your job takes all the time. So it's like, so now that you do not have children, you do not have an excuse to run away from your job. But, like, I think that's my opinion on that. Competing familial or social obligations, such as the role of primary care for a disabled spouse, sibling, or person, or parent. I think, yes, of course, I feel this is a good reason, but not reason enough for me, because, how I put it, you made the decision to take care of a parent, and you can, once the parent dies or once the other person dies, you can always have the child. I know this sounds horrible and stuff, but, like, you can always have the child. Like, you have to decide that, is this, like, this older person's life, this spouse, this friend, this sibling, this parent, is this person's life more important than the possibility of a new life you could bring? And if you come to the conclusion that, yes, this individual is more important to me, you are not yet sure that, okay, bringing a baby in the world, the baby will become more important. But I also feel it's a very responsible decision to make, that the fear of neglect child, in the sense that, okay, you do not want to neglect one person for the other. So it's easier to choose when the person is not yet here, than, like, you can easily choose an individual who is already here over one who is yet to get here. So I think this is a responsible decision. I'm not currently in that, like, phase, and a lot of times, especially, like, if you're dealing with a parent and they have, like, multiple children, you can have children as well, but because they are not burdened, and you won't be the only one burdened to take care of them because they have multiple children. So you won't be the only one. But in the case of a spouse, I think from the beginning, you decide that, okay, yes, like, I want you to be with me for the long term. So, like, the decision for you to be with me for the long term is enough for us to choose each other. I'm choosing you over the possibility of a new life, and I don't think it's that much of a problem. I think this can, and if you still want children, this can be solved by the adoption of an older child who is, like, does not require much, like, a lot of babying, so to speak, but requires more honest conversations to deal with whatever issues they face. So this doesn't, like, literally physically need, like, it doesn't need your time, that much of your time. They need your time, but they don't need your time, like, your physical time. They need you to speak to them. You can speak to them while caring for the other person. So, like, I think this is reason enough. I just say responsible reason. Yeah, that's my verdict on this. But, like, I don't think it's reason enough in a sense. But for some people, it is reason enough because they have chosen this individual for them. They've chosen this individual over this current life this current human over a new human, so to speak, and that's a responsible, wonderful decision. Competing familiar or social obligations. Okay, I've already said that. Possible deterioration of friendship. I do not think this. I think this is the reasons why people have children in Nigeria, because of the possible deterioration of friendships. And I feel like this is where poorer countries deviate from richer countries. Either way, your friendship would deteriorate, because you cannot meet them anymore. You're going to jobs. Like, there are people that I know that I love them. I know that they're my friends and I do love them, but I haven't spoken to them in like weeks or months. And in the end, you start to forget. And I think this is why people pair off. People get in poorer countries, that people are dedicating their lives to dangerous work, or they just don't have time. Or in a situation where I've heard people in Nigeria say all you have is family, in a sense that they feel like people who are not related to them are against them, so they don't even have real friendships to speak of. So I feel like it comes to opposites, depending on your the kind of society you live in. This can be a reason to have children and a reason to not have children. Like I said, I think I'll mention it a lot. Having children is inherently selfish. Like I said, this is reason enough. I keep repeating the same stuff. For example, in a wealthier country, this would be, you love your friend and you want to continue to go out with your friend, you want to travel with your friend, you want to experience with the world with your friends, and you feel like if your job has taken this much time from you, you want the remaining time to be with the adult humans that you love. That's the opposite in case for Nigerians. I feel like in Nigeria, a lot of people, their friendships will deteriorate and you don't have time. So this is another reason why people seek for romantic partnerships. So it's this person that I'm choosing to marry is obligated to be with me. Then we will provide another human being that is obligated to be with us if one of us goes. And I feel so the possible deterioration of friendship for a Nigerian is reasons to have children, which is so weird. The next one is preference of having a pet over a child. For a Nigerian, I don't think this can fly, or as a Nigerian, because like I said, this is a personal code of conduct. I think we barely see each other as human, and I'm sorry to say this, I have particular distrust over people who really love their animals. And I know that this is like I said, it's unfair to judge somebody. So if I do meet somebody who really loves their animal, I think it's that. And other than this podcast, I'm not going to be putting on Twitter people who love animals are weirdos, blah blah blah. Let me just explain the sense. I think my distrust of such people is that we are barely seeing each other as human. Why are you extending this love to another creature who is not one of us? I think it's the fear of the outsider, the fact that you can love the outsider but barely loving me. And I have a rude stereotype in my head that a lot of people who aggressively love animals most likely would be racist to me. I know it's a horrible stereotype, but it's a stereotype in my head. And I'm using the concept of a foreigner, or women who love cats, or men who love dogs or cats would be hateful to children. And I think it's but that is a rude stereotype. I know it's a stereotype, and I know that knowing is not feeling. I worry about these people because I worry about the safety of my fellow humans among them, and I know that it is irrational. So if I do have the opportunity to meet somebody, then I feel that's when this emotion comes to the forefront of my head, and I'm like, okay, I need to sort this out. But until I meet such an individual, I don't think I'll need towards the word to sort out that feeling. I'm just pushing it to the back of my head. So, but I don't like animals. Okay, remember this is a personal code of conduct. I do not like animals at all. No, I do not like animals. This is because, how I put it, it's not that I hate them or anything. I just don't like body. Okay, I love body hair on humans, but I don't like fur. No, and they're so warm. Jesus fucking Christ, they are so warm. How can a creature be that warm? For a human being, my number one criteria for a lover, a male lover, because I'm sort of, I don't know, that's a long discovering of my, that's a long sex and sexuality talk for the average. That's a different podcast altogether. For my number one criteria for a lover is having a cooler body temperature than me, because I run hot. My skin runs hot, like warmer. It's like normal, but like not a fever, but like warmer than average. So like if I want to hug somebody like for a long period of time, I want somebody whose body temperature is cooler than average. So like the possibility of even preferring a pet over a child is not for me. Then for me, judging others about like the pet over a child thing is, pets don't live long. Like they don't live long. Like they won't, unless maybe you get a parrot. I think maybe you can get a parrot. They don't live long like most pets. And I feel like a child is like an independent pet, that a pet that eventually becomes independent, that checks on you from time to time, in the sense that they will outlive you. And I don't think you want people you love to die before you. I think there's like, we've all sort of accepted that our parents will die before us, but like I don't think we want the people that we love to die before us. Like we know that they will be hurt, but like in a selfish kind of way. I keep saying like all human like motivations are selfish in that kind of thing. In a selfish kind of way, we do not want the people that we love to die before us, to die because it will hurt us, like the idea of losing them and not being there. But if you're dead, like even if you believe in like religion, you're not there to see them suffering. So like sort of, that's like reason enough to die before the people you love, because you won't be there to see them suffering. But like there's that, I keep saying. But like the view that next one is the view that having children threatens one's personal development by consuming time and energy that one wishes to devote to one another. I feel this is a good reason. Like if you feel like like you being stuck in because your lab, and again I feel this is also a responsible decision, because you know that you love this thing way more than you would love like creating a new life or like adopting a new life into your household. And choosing to not have children or to not adopt a child is a responsible decision, because you know that you do not want to participate in neglect. And I think that is responsible. I say good reason, but I don't think I found something reason enough, because I don't have children. I don't have time, because I want to spend like a shit ton of time reading novels and that kind of stuff. But in that kind of situation, you realize that it comes with the territory. I like people who know that, okay, I'm bringing a new human, there is a lot of responsibility attached to this human. So like unwillingness to disrupt one's current work and home life and private home life. I feel, well, this is I like the fact that they use the word current, because I need people to understand that their decisions can change. I think that's the reason why we question a lot of women's decisions to or women and men to permanently sterilize themselves. But I don't think we need to question it, in the sense that even if they make the decision that they do not want to have children, and even if they change their mind, their children to adopt, like yes, their genetic material will no longer be passed on. If they decide to have their tubes cut or their tubes tied or having a vasectomy, yes, I know with modern medicine you can get a reversal. If their decision changes, they can aggressively focus on like getting a reversal, or just adopt a child who is in need of a home, I guess. So decision changes after permanent sterilization, there are other options they can follow, and I think a leading one is adoption of the many children that have been neglected by people, in my opinion, should not be having children. And that's the scary thing about like a lot of people that I feel don't want children. I feel like they are the perfect people to have children, because they understand the sheer effort that it takes to raise a proper human being. And I think a lot of them realize this I remember this is like theories and everything, a lot of them realize this by the amount of effort they had to make to improve themselves, while realizing that this would have been a lot easier if my parents made these efforts. It would have been a lot easier to improve myself, to think a certain way, to understand myself as a human being, if my parents made this effort. So they'd be like, wow. They'd be like, this is like a hypothetical person in Daya's mind, and this is how I'm choosing to think of other people. They'd be like, this is too much of a responsibility, because they know how difficult it was to become the type of person that they are. So, but like having children is so like a thing. Like like situation where one's partner already has children from a previous relationship and one does not have need or justification to bear or father additional children. I think it was Kelly Stamps, was one random YouTuber. She was like, oh, she doesn't mind having, like, marrying somebody with children. She doesn't mind being like a good stepmother. And I was like, well, yes, because I do not how will I put it? A lot of people that are like, your genetic material. I think once your life gets a certain level of comfort, that will no longer stress you, like, because you know that whether I'm going to die either way, so like whether or not I leave somebody here, the point is that the people that I leave here love me. I guess it doesn't matter whether they came out from my genitals or not. It's like the fact that I leave people that love me and that will miss me, or that the rest of my days are not lonely. That's the key thing. So yeah, uncertainty over the stability of the parenting relationship and damaged relationship or difficulties with them getting children may cause. I think, yeah, I think that's the one thing that I worry about. Like, I think this ties into like the other podcast I had last week, which was about why you should abstain. I feel like most Nigerian people are not going to be in my headspace. Like, I want somebody who's equally unsure whether or not we have children. But then again, if I'm with somebody that is equally unsure, it's not a question of, okay, if I meet somebody that is equally unsure, it's not a question of, will we become sure about our decisions at the same time, or will we come to the same decision at the same time? That's a key thing that I think I want, that's freaking me out, because in the sense, like, that kind of relationship. I remember this one, I don't think I remember this one time, but I remember like being younger and like sort of hoping that something would happen and I'd be sterile in that kind of sense. So I know that, okay, this decision is taken from me, which is great. But like, this decision is taken from me, which is great. But like, I think everything, like the plumbing and everything, works fine. So like now I have like more control over it and I have to make like a conscious decision. It's not just, oh, like nothing works and yeah, accept it like that. I kind of wished it was like that, but like it's not. I think all my plumbing works. So like, unless maybe you find yourself with somebody that is maybe sterile and has accepted it like that, this is me talking about myself. Unless I find myself with somebody who's sterile and has accepted it like that, or we are both individuals that decide that we are not having children. But the thing is, I am unsure, and like I said before, I feel like being 45 is the perfect age where I'm just like, okay, I truly do not want to have children. And for me, adopting children is as good as like birthing them in a sense, and I don't think I have like that much of a problem with that. So like, yeah, that is my decision on the other partner. Is the worry that the other partner wouldn't accept or respect my decisions. Next one, possibility of sexual activity without the need of risk or willingness to get pregnant using birth control. I won't say like I said. This whole thing follows on like the Stoicism principle. Like, you can because for most people, childbearing is something they can control. Like in modern age, like you get even in the ancient age, it's just like it had it had two connotations. It's either you control it you had to, if in like the ancient time, you had to totally abstain, and that may not be something that some people want to do with their lives, or not really totally abstain, like abstain from heterosexual penetrative sex. Because they can be doing like other activities. But in this question, you can eat your cake and have it, so to speak. And that's like I think for a lot of young women in Nigeria, that is something that the people really want for like most of their youth, and going on to like a lot of, I feel this is very rambly, but this is a personal code of conduct of their youth. So I believe that we should push for more accessible birth control, because it frustrates me and annoys me when I see 15-year-old girls with children, because they have no control over their body and they find themselves attached to a man. And that's why this is my theory on why, like, in in like first world countries, while like a lot of the biggest proponents of voluntary childlessness are women. We no research or proof or anything, because they're the ones that have the brunt of like they have to bear the brunt of childbearing. Yet for in traditional history, they had very little control over their bodies, very little control over like what they could do and that kind of vibe. So it's like, yeah, a lot of people decide that. So like this, with this new advent of control, it makes sense that people will be like, this is not what they want, because now I can control and I do not choose to be a broodmare in quotes. So yeah, next one is concerns over the effects of pregnancy has on the woman's body: weight gain, stretch marks, dripping breasts, blah blah blah. I feel for me this isn't reason enough, because beauty of bodies will fade. You will, and again, a lot of this stuff is reversible. So if you make a decision that you're going to have a child, then you have to be prepared mentally for this. There's no point breaking down. I think it's important for people who make decisions to have children that the first thing they need to do is understand what they are facing. But a lot of people don't make that decision. They don't. I feel like if you truly want children, once you understand all the side effects, you would still want them, because it's a freaking new life. So I feel this is just like a side benefit of not having children, but not like reason enough for most people, because beauty will still fade. You're still going to get like hideous. Not like old people can be cute, but like in like sexual aesthetic standards, you're still not going to be top tier as you age. So that makes sense. And sexual pleasure and everything will still go down the drain as you age. So whether or not you pop out a human being, this is just, in my opinion, a side reason, not reason enough. But remember, this is a personal code of conduct. This is Dio trying to give herself reasons by basically scrolling their Wikipedia page. I was just there like, some people dislike young children. I consider those people the enemy. Okay, hear me out. There's a reason why I consider those people the enemy. Remember, I won't say like you listen to me and you don't listen. Remember when I said the last time where I was talking about how... it wasn't the last time, it was a long time ago, where I was talking about how... what's the word? I was talking about how I refuse to respect somebody who doesn't see me as human. I feel like if you distinctively dislike young children, I don't trust you. I wouldn't trust you. Why? Because children are human. Yes, they are like a blank slate that you like. Basically, parenting, in my own opinion, is an exercise in brainwashing. In my own opinion. So I feel like somebody disliking young children. Remember, I feel like somebody disliking young children will disrespect other humans, because a human being... I think Ubuntu is something like that states that humanity is the quality we owe each other. I am here because you are here, which is something that I feel like people who dislike young children are refusing to accept their humanity. And I feel that anybody who refuses to accept another person's in the humanity is not to be trusted. It's not that you like them. It's you don't have to love children. But if you feel and you talk like... If you talk down about children, if you talk about how they are disgusting, or how they are this, or how they are that, I do not trust you as an individual, because I feel that you are not looking at the real reason why you do not want children. Because in a sense because a child didn't do anything to you. They are just children, and they are existing, and they are just existing, and they are so fragile, and they can die, and they are incredibly dependent on you, or incredibly dependent on whoever birthed them, or whoever brought them into this world, or whoever contributed to bringing them into this world. So I feel like young children cannot be hated, should not be hated, should never be hated, because I feel you'll be hating the foundation of all of humanity if you hate young children, because young children only respond to stimulus. They are not manipulative. They just do what they want, which is something I admit I'm jealous of. And it's up to you to tell them that they now, it's to educate them about Ubuntu, in a sense, to educate them that they now live in a society. Like I said, parenting is an exercise in brainwashing, in my opinion. It's now up to you to educate them on how they are supposed to act in a society. you're basically giving a blank slate and you want to push some ideals onto them. So like, yeah, that is parenting. The whole point of parenting is pushing ideals onto this child that you're bringing into this world. So I feel young children are not to be hated because they are too fragile. I don't trust anybody who says shit about kids, like calling them gross or like calling them like shit stains. Or I do not trust such an individual. I feel that individual is not to be trusted, because I feel like even if you do not want children, if you find yourself in a situation where a child is in danger, I wouldn't say it's your responsibility according to my morals, because I think I said this the other time, nobody has rights. Like, rights are not a real thing in my opinion. But I feel that the concept of morality is, it should be a forward looking at the kind of society you as an individual want to build, and you try to push for other people to agree with you. And that is something I feel is very, very important, like understanding that nobody has the right to do whatever the fuck they wanted to do, but individuals have decided to build a certain type of society, and they have pushed for those ideals, and pushed like their thoughts, their opinions onto other people, and people agreed with them and continued that society. So I think this is just boiling down to I as a personal human being will not trust somebody who hates young children, like who genuinely hates them, because young children are literally the I wouldn't say innocent, because innocence has to tie into morality. I'd say young children are the definition of blank. Why would you hate a blank slate? It makes no sense. They did not ask to be here. And I think this ties into something else where I'm like, okay, now that you're tying into the immorality of having children. Like, I know it's going to get into antinatalism when I get to that segment, but like, now that you're tying into the immorality of having children, do you resent your parents? I like to think that I chose to love my mother. I would say I made the decision after he was gone, but I chose to love my parents. Like, the key things I choose, because I believe love is a choice. There are a lot of people who hate their parents, and a lot of people who abandon their parents if their society allows them to. So the economic reason, the staving off of loneliness, which is a key reason why a lot of people in Nigeria have children, is something that is not a guarantee, especially like with the way like Lagos and big cities in Nigeria are. Like, a lot of people would abandon their parents to die if they could. So in that kind of sense, but I would say that I chose to love my mother. It's beyond obligation. I literally sat down, thought about it, and other than the fact that she birthed me, I chose to love this human being. So yeah, the exact reason why I chose to is like too personal for a freaking podcast, a public podcast, but like, yeah, I think that is my random offbeat, off-kilter stuff on people who dislike young children. I just don't trust them. Pregnancy and childbirth can bring about undesirable changes like postpartum depression and feelings of insecurity and inadequacy and all this kind of stuff. Lasting effect on women's health. Okay. And that kind of situation. Somatic maintenance, reproductive efforts. That makes sense. But I feel like you can always recover after you have the child. So if you don't want to have children, yeah. The health of one's partner does not allow for children. I think that makes sense. This is a good reason. You've chosen. Like I said, love is a choice. This is not my idea. I'd always thought about it, but I hadn't like formulated it into a sentence until my friend told me was like her ideals that she believes that love is a choice. Like, and anybody, I think this ties into, I know this is off point, totally off point and off kilter. This ties into like people who choose to cheat on their partners. You are only choosing to have sex with another human being because you are sexually attracted to this person. You have to decide that you chose. You wouldn't, irrespective of like falling or like having strong chemistry with another person, did you choose them? The key thing, have you chosen this individual as the one you choose to love? So, and this choice may not necessarily be conscious. Still, but like that's a side stuff. The health of one's partner does not allow for children. Like I said, I always like maybe like my weird wish for sterility. So I know that okay, it's not my fault. I wasn't God in quotes. Didn't want me to have them. in that kind of like vibe. But you realize that no, if you're with somebody who's sterile, and or you're with somebody who has genetic defects that they do not want to pass on to children, then that's a good enough reason. That's a perfect reason. I'm saying to myself, remember, I'm not saying this is called a personal code of conduct, and I do not give any definitive answers, because some of the things that I do not consider personal reason enough, you might consider reason enough, and you might want to shed light on stuff that I might either change my opinion or be genuinely happy for you, that kind of stuff, while still maintaining my own opinion. Existing or possible health problem, including genetic. I've already mentioned that. Lack of the so-called maternal or paternal instincts. I don't think there's an instinct, so to speak of. People really like to use the word like instinct or like to just hide the fact that I just want to boost my ego. Because to be honest, because I swear, children like really boost your ego. Children tell you how amazing you are. They tell you how like awesome and everything you are, which is like an amazing thing, especially in that period of their lives where like you are the only thing they've known. You are the only adults they've had as a constant. So everything you do is just amazing and shocking, which is something that I'm like, oh God, I miss. Like in that kind of, I would say I miss because I've never had children. Then next, the fear and revulsion throughout the physical condition of pregnancy. I feel like in the end you will still deteriorate. And I feel like every woman in a sense is afraid of like when I use the word every, it's like my theory of everybody, because I can't say definitive things about people's lives. I feel like everybody has a fear of childbirth. Now, I feel that fear is in varying degrees. Personally, I don't think I have a fear, even when I know I live in a country that that is just trash and has like a high portion of maternal and child mortality in that kind of situation. I'm still not bothered about like childbirth, because I'll be dead and I wouldn't know how everybody else is feeling because I'll be dead. And the other thing is celibacy of fear or revulsion towards sexual activity or intimacy. I wouldn't say I find this ties into last week's podcast. I wouldn't say I find sexual intimacy disgusting. I'd say that I'd say that I don't really care like about it. I feel like I live fine being celibate the entirety of my life. So for me, it's not reason enough. And again, I need people to, but I think a lot of people, this focuses on people, whether or not people want to pass on their genetic material. For me, having children is also tied to adopting. So if you feel revulsed, like grossed out about sexual intimacy, but you want children, you can always adopt one, I guess. Various fears, for example, being trapped or disappointed, as well as the fears for the child. Getting from this part towards the end, we've started getting to things that I agree with, like the end of this like social reasons, economic reasons, and the philosophical, especially with the philosophical reasons. Like those are like my reasons, like the ones that really, really apply to me and speak to me. Now, various fears. I think there's one thing that, especially, I think it ties into the antinatalism, where like this, like having children is immoral because like this life is filled with suffering. And especially as a Nigerian, this is especially true for me, because I do not have the confidence that I will be able to make my child a confident global citizen. As a black person, I'm not confident that I will be able to bring a child and ensure that they are protected from people who do not see them as human, to ensure that they are protected from people who want to attack them for their very existence. I'm not sure I can protect them. And again, I'm not sure, and even if I cannot change society to that extent, I'm not sure I'll be able to raise an individual that'll be able to come up with counterpoints, be able to defend themselves, be able to destroy all entities that are against their happiness. And also another thing that worries me, like this is like my own personal fears, the fear that my child could be the horrible person. It's not about a question of, okay, it is a question of people doing horrible things to them, but a possibility that my child could do horrible things to people, that my child could be a rapist, that my child could be a serial killer. That's it. That's something that terrifies me. That my child will be a nuisance to society, or society will swallow and destroy my child. And that is something I don't think, as a responsible individual, like, I won't say as a responsible individual, my definition of responsibility, I don't think that's something that I can sleep at night, knowing I have brought an individual to this world, and I do not have enough preparations to make their life as comfortable as possible. But that is my own personal reasons in this sense. Perceived or actual incapacity to be a responsible and patient parent. Yes, this really applies to me, but I don't think other people, like, there's one thing, the subsection was believe that other people are better suited to have children than oneself. Nope, I think we are all on this planet. This is my own theory, because I feel it takes a lot to take care of a child, and I think that we can all try, but nobody is going to get it right, because in the end, I like the fact that we are human and we can, like, think on our own and we can come up with solutions and that kind of stuff. So even though, like, you did like 80%, you won't create a fucked up human being. They will sort out the remaining like, so far you did a good 80% job, they will sort out the same 20%, because there are some people that their parents didn't even do up to 20% and they had to do the fucking 90% of becoming a useful, responsible, proper addition to society. And a lot, especially in a country like Nigeria, where you have a lot parents that are not remotely even doing 5%, and I'm just like, who allowed you to breed? But when you look at their life history, you realize they have no choice. Like, the joy of, like, popping out a human being is like a momentary distraction from, like, how shitty your life is, and you're just there like, this human being loves me because they know no other thing but to love me. This human being thinks I'm amazing because they have no other choice but to think I'm amazing. And it's scary, like, trying to push on obligation onto people that are not deserving of that obligation. So, believe that one is too old or too young to have children. And I think all of us should be voluntary childless, like, under the age of 30. That's my own opinion. Maybe because I remember having this conversation. It wasn't a conversation. My mother was doing the whole, Egbe to marry, or like, Egbe ni, like, your age mate has gotten married, or your age mate has 3 children. I'm like, my freaking classmate has a kid and I don't give a shit. Like, I am 9 in my head. Okay, not like 9, but like, I'm not ready to take on the responsibility of a whole ass human being. Jesus fucking Christ. But children are cute though. Parents can be less empathetic towards non-family members. I feel this is not a valid reason at all, because my definition is that somebody who focuses and obsesses over their children over everyone else, that society can burn in hell, would think the same way of their lover, would think the same way. That person is just generally prone to being less empathetic to people that they do not love. That is, it's not just, I don't think you become that way. I think you choose to be that way, or like, and I remember these choices are not necessarily conscious. You find yourself that way, but it's something you can always fix. It's not, I don't think it's tied. I don't think it's a fear that should be attached to children, because if you want to be a selfish, unempathetic asshole, you don't need children to make you that way. So, like, I'm excited because I'm starting to get to parts that I genuinely agree with. Economic. Okay, the picture of, like, yes, modern welfare programs negate the need for children, some argue. I live in a third world country. There's no fucking welfare program, which in my country you don't have children. Who the fuck is going to take care of you when you're old? Probably your nieces, your uncles, your aunts. Other people have to be willing to pay for somebody. Like, I think the common thing, even including for people who, like, have children, is for the children, especially when they live busy lives or in different cities. I think the common thing for people is to get a poor artist, a teenager from a very poor household, and for them to sacrifice their youth, which is, I think, is the most common thing in like Nigerian households and in third world households, because Nigeria is not unique. And I think this is going to tie into, like, my next podcast. It's going to be about, Dio, remember to write this down. It's going to be about forgetting that you're not unique and the dehumanization of others. So, but So a lot of it's easy like in Nigeria, the easy thing is to focus on like getting a teenager from a very poor household, and you pay for their education, you pay for everything, and the payments for like your goodwill, so to speak, is for them to sacrifice their youth taking care of like a crippled old person. That is like the standard practice in like Nigeria. Children are not taking care of their parents, especially in like middle class household, like especially when their parents get to the point where their bodies are no longer suitable, their bodies are damaged and fucked up and that kind of stuff, and you realize that nope, we can't do this anymore in that kind of situation. So yeah. So rejection of the claim that the country's economy is at risk if some people don't procreate. Yes, the economy is at risk if some people don't procreate, and I think I remember reading this one racist manifesto and this stuff. Like, I feel like you should be being genuinely afraid that people who look like you will cease to exist, because more and more people, I think there's a problem in the West, more and more people who look like you, more and more like people are choosing to not have children, and countries are deciding to supplement their population by immigration, and immigrants they haven't lived a level of comfort for a long enough period, so they are like aggressively populating your nation, and you feel like people who look like you will no longer exist. While I know this is like, while I understand that this fear is irrational, but I feel for those people, knowing is not feeling, so they might so they feel like they'll be outnumbered their children, especially the ones that have children, and they're complaining that all these people that don't have children and decide this, they're making all these crazy decisions and they don't have stake in the country, and you're worried that your children will be outnumbered by these children of immigrants, and they will be treated terribly. And yeah, because it does happen. I think a lot of people who are shitty are like, people are always like, oh, it's because they've done something shitty, and like sometimes even when they've not done something shitty, they know that human beings, them included, are trash. So the chances of when you are outnumbered, or when you're not the one in power, or when you are not the representation of amazingness, that you will be that the people you've left behind will be maltreated or treated like trash, and that kind of situation. And again, yes, the thing is that when people are trying to say don't guilt, they believe that very few parents actually have children in order to support the country's economy. Yes, but people are not having children to support their economy. People are having children to support their own personal economies. So in a sense, because society is made up of like various people are making the decision to support the country's economy. But sometimes, especially in the case of Nigeria, where our population is exploding without the necessary economic growth, because I personally think that the opinion of Africa as overpopulated is bullshit and kind of racist, because our continent is massive. We have the space for well over 5 billion people, but we don't have the economic growth to go along with that population spike. So yeah, so like that is like the true form of our overpopulation. And once you have like people who are living more comfortable life, more and more people will choose to have like 1 or 2 children. Then eventually more and more of those children will decide that they will not have children to follow them after that. I feel like there are a lot of children in need of care and a home. So whatever. And willingness to pay the cost of raising a child. Jesus fucking Christ, children are expensive. Oh my god, I think that's like a good reason a lot of Nigerians are choosing to have fewer children. I would say a lot of Nigerians who live in cities, because a lot of people are choosing a lot of Nigerians in actual fact, because a good portion of our country is incredibly poor. A good portion so like a lot of people are just choosing, because we have a lot of malnourished children, we have a lot of, and that's why a lot of people that are just there like, and the decision to not have children, they chose to have children, blah blah blah. People from poor households exposed to limited opportunities that have not experienced any true like joy in their life, they're not going to abstain from sexual intercourse. Even when they don't want to have children, they're not going to abstain. And coupled with the fact that they lack birth control, I feel that at least in Nigeria, the standard for like, if you want to have children, is can you ensure that they are not malnourished and they can read and write. For a third, like from a really poor ass country like some parts of Nigeria, the standard should be, can they read and write will you be able to provide the amount of children that you ensure that they will grow to their full natural heights, for their full they will grow to their full genetic potential, and they will be able to read, write, do basic arithmetic, and be able to learn a skill. I think that's the requirements that I feel should be a universal requirement that anybody should go through before deciding to have children. But this decision doesn't come to women, especially like in like third world countries, because we are not, a lot of women in my country, like I am in full control of my body. I have access to like non-judgmental birth control, because if I go towards a younger doctor, I know I have access to non-judgmental birth control. I have access to like a lot of things, but most women in my country do not have access to these things. Their bodies are sole properties of their husbands, so a lot of these things will not fly. Because in this kind of situation, a lot of people that's why you have situations of people doing horrible things to children. Like, you're just like, how could you even do that to a baby, to a child? The torturing of children is because they consider these children that came out of their bodies as a source of their suffering, as a product of the individual that rapes them. So it's usually like a mental, I wouldn't call it postpartum depression. I would call it like, it's usually like, I don't know, I'm not armchair psychologist or armchair psychiatrist in the building. I think it's near psychosis at that point, because a lot of women in this country find themselves torturing their child, beating the child to death. And I think that's one thing that we need to realize as Nigerians. That's the one thing that freaks me out about a lot of children find themselves in situations. I think this is my own personal reasons for not having children. I feel my time will be better spent ensuring that the children that do exist have good lives. I don't necessarily need to add my own into the equation. So that's like something I'm saying for myself. And children are fucking expensive. Like I said, I was reading before I went off on a tangent. Is the realization that children, there's a lot of things that I know I've said like the basic criteria I feel for a third world country that I think any adults with common sense should have, but there are a lot of adults who are human, who are responsible, but don't have common sense in quotes, because they do not have the opportunities to think this way. They're either bound by tradition, bound by religion to produce and continue to produce more human beings. So it's like, so they may not, even though they know the logic of this, they probably will not do it. And I think it's as your responsibility. We are barely, people cannot, at least the bare minimum, at least in a country like Nigeria, is have children that you're confident that no matter come rain, come shine, these children will not face malnourishment. That's the bare minimum for Nigeria. And to be honest, I feel for that number, for a lot of women, it will cut down the number of children they can have to 3. Like for a lot, if you just say that I am going to avoid malnourishment at all costs, it will really cut down the number of children a lot of people. If you try to push that, I don't think, my society is not the kind of country where women can make that decision. If you can push that ideology, aggressively hammer it into the men's head that you are only allowed to have the amount of children, that you can be certain that without the help of the woman that births these children, none of these children will face malnourishment. I think people need to understand like the horrors of malnourishment, but a lot of Nigerians are also very malnourished and facing lead poisoning, making irrational decisions and what have you. So I don't know, but children are insanely expensive. And to be honest, there's one thing that particularly scares me, and it ties into like my fear as like a third worlder. The fact that I may never be able to afford anything. Like this ties into what I keep trying to say, like how I've told myself that by the end of March, even if I don't find a better job, I'm going to quit my job. Not that I hate my job, but like I'm underpaid. I deserve more in life. I want to focus on like learning a high value skill. I don't know, maybe like I'll go back into web development, or aggressively focus on becoming a data engineer, looking for like ETL opportunities, and like looking for freelance ETL opportunities, trying to get myself like arrange people's systems and maybe try to sell out some like more QMS like programs and that kind of stuff. So like yeah, that's like my own take on existing as a human being. But like this is just me casually talking and not editing anything. So where was I? Children are fucking expensive. That I agree with. But like I feel like so far you give yourself a threshold. This like children are fucking expensive ends up being like a limit to the number of children you have, rather than I'm not going to have children at all. No need for care by one's own children when one is old or close to dying because of the modern welfare states. Like I said, this does not apply to a Nigerian and to most parts of the world. I feel this is not like a responsible enough decision, because a lot of individuals, as well, I think even individuals who live in America, I don't think this applies to you either, because I was having this like Reddit like scroll through, and somebody was like, all their mothers, they're not even interested in inheritance because their parents live in like a retirement home, and private retirement homes are taking all her savings, all of it, and they want to kick her out because she's still not dead. And just realize that nope, even if you live in a modern welfare state, if you live in a modern welfare state like America, you are still like an engineer. You need fucking children to take care of you when you're old, guy. Like I pity you. Which is like the main concern for like having children as a Nigerian, the main selfish reason. Like when my body can no longer function, I need somebody who is obligated to take care of me. And how do you achieve that obligation? By proper brainwashing. Like I don't know if you can, and because if you don't do your brainwashing right, guy, they will abandon you, and they will or if you use like horrible torturous terms to do your brainwashing, they will abandon you and they will leave you to die because you're a trash human being who hates them. So if you're going to have children, make sure your brainwashing, for this selfish purpose of having somebody take care of you, make sure your brainwashing skills are top notch. Like be responsible, guy. Ability to donate one's inheritance to a charity of one's choice instead of having to divide it amongst one's children. I feel this is not reason enough, because I feel if you've raised children well enough that they can stand their own grounds, whatever money I amass in my own organization, in my own time, as far as I've given you the tools, but remember this is like everybody has limits based just beneath what they do themselves. I personally feel that if you've made enough money and you've ensured that they've had the best education, they've had the best education available to you, they've had all the opportunities, and they make good money as adults, I see no reason why they should be struggling over inheritance. You can still donate all your inheritance to people who need it rather than children, because you've given them the tools to succeed as adults. And if you did a proper job of parenting, they wouldn't want your inheritance, or they wouldn't fight over your inheritance. Rather, they will see it as a nice bonus if you decide to give it to them. Next is philosophical. I think this is where I agree. Jesus, I really fucking agree. Is as philosopher, author, blah blah blah. I can't pronounce his name. But if I cared about this individual enough, I would try. Having children is inherently wrong because life is full of suffering. I think this is something that I truly, truly, truly believe. But I also do not judge others for making this decision, because I understand like the societal pressures, the economic pressures, the fears that are associated with not having children. So like, while I feel like life is full of suffering, and especially as somebody of African descent and somebody who currently lives in Africa, somebody who is not confident that they can provide appropriate resources, because I do not want my children to be searching for scholarships like I am. I do not want, especially now that I've subconsciously told myself I do not want to like my financial goals for myself is not to emigrate. My goal is make enough money within my country, or like as a global citizen where I can travel, experience the world, but still be and try to improve my country, and maybe get like, I don't know, like a runaway passport for like, in case no matter how hard I try to improve this nation, we still don't decide to have common sense and everything burns to hell. So like, if I'm not confident of ensuring that these people's lives will be, I won't say smooth sailing, because it's important that people have trials and tribulations. It's for two important things. If I'm not confident of the fact that I can ensure that this individual lives an effective, stable, well-exposed life, and I'm not confident I can raise a logical human being, then I don't think I should try. The belief that one can make an even greater contribution to humanity through one's work rather than having children. I think this makes so much sense. I really, really, really agree with it. That's why I think I may end up adopting children rather than, what's the word, like pumping out one from my vagina. I keep saying vagina, pumping out one from my vagina, but like I feel like I may end up adopting it because I feel there are a lot of children that whose lives needs to be improved, who's like, there are a lot of things you can do to improve society by simply improving access to education and birth control. You improve the lives of millions of children. It's not just like you can, by preventing certain children from even getting here, you improve the lives of millions of children. Okay, the view that the wish to reproduce oneself is a form of narcissism. Yes, I believe this. I strongly believe this because why do you want to create another little human for you to brainwash? But like, yeah, a lot of us just do it because, to be honest, children are just hype. They think you're amazing, they think you're wonderful, they think everything about you is just fantastic. So yeah, I can totally see it. Believe that one can better contribute to the welfare of existing people, including children, than to produce even more. I agree with this. This is reason enough for me. Like this philosophical standpoints, they are reason enough for me. The belief that one can better contribute to the welfare of existing people, including children, rather than producing more. Yes. I wouldn't say about the world. Like I said before, I think there's one thing that I looked at, like my own concept of nihilism, separate from like optimistic nihilism, is accepting the fact that I believe that humanity will be fine. Humanity will always be fine. We've been fine, we'll continue to be fine, we will always be fine, and everything will be fabulous for us, for all of humanity. But I cannot be sure about, will my people be involved? I feel like humanity will continue. They might no longer be black people, they might no longer be Africans, they might no longer be white people, they might no longer be Asians. Okay, they'll probably still be Asians. Like that's like the version of humanity that is in my head. But like humanity as a whole will continue and humanity will be fine. But I need to understand that there's a possibility that I and the people I love may not be part of this glorious future ahead, which is something that I feel about Nigeria. I wouldn't say that the world is declining. I have great hopes for the world, even with like the concept of like global warming and everything. I feel that if we focus on science, I won't say I have great hopes, because the stupidity of the United States of America and the realization that how could you let your education system sink so low? It's so far a billion times better than the education system of Nigeria. But the realization that you didn't actively try to improve the quality of individuals in your society. I feel democracy should be the end game. Whatever government or system that you're approving, the goal is should be continuously trying to improve the quality of people such that they will make logical decisions to pick better leaders, to be better leaders, to create. That's the key thing. I understand that a lot of like dictatorships and other stuff, they want to reduce the quality of people, which is constantly happening in Nigeria, and it's annoying me. They want to reduce the quality of people in a way that they will be able to easily control them, easily ruin their lives, which is something that is so, it makes it boiling in anger. The fact that this sniveling human being throwing 10 naira, like, you know how like $1 is 500 naira, and you now start throwing 10 naira at people, and they are struggling and hitting each other to get that money, and I'm just like, you are a trash human. And the fear that I might fail, I know I'm raising my voice to that point, let me go down. The fear that I may fail to that extent that my child may end up being in that scraggling stuff. Let me even talk about all the possibilities or fears of how I feel Nigeria is going to scatter, or how Nigeria, our government is borderline irresponsible. I'm not even thinking about big things like global warming. We are selling ourselves to China, and I'm just worried that, oh my god, my child is going to end up as a slave in a mine somewhere, or they're going to end up in a factory, and no access, like, because the way I feel is bad enough, realizing that there are opportunities for growth, there's knowledge to be had, but I simply I cannot touch this knowledge, or if I can't touch this knowledge, I have to make extra effort. I have to do way more than somebody who was lucky to be born into a first world country. But I know that there's still like a pathway for me. The fear that I could reduce the quality of living of my child even lower than the one I was brought up with, oh my god. I don't think that's something that is like, so maybe that's the reason why I'm giving myself to 45. Because if I find myself as an individual with an insane amount of money, not necessarily insane, a good amount of money that can create a confident global citizen, I'll probably revisit this again and come up with a decision whether or not I want to either actively improve the lives of available children without adopting one for my own, or actively improve the lives of available children and adopt like a few for my own, or improve the lives of available children all over the world while having some of my own genetic material. So like, it's all tied to, will I have the confidence to provide to create a confident global citizen that can face new challenges because they've had the springboard and the opportunity to move forward. Rejection of the claim that the survival of the entire human species is at risk if some people don't procreate, especially in times of human overpopulation. I think in a grand scale, this is true. But in a minor scale in which you are a minority in your society, you are a minority, like, languages are dying in this country, not for two reasons. Some people are just not having enough children, for like their specific tiny, and I think in my own country is that people are choosing English over their native language. But like in other like niche climes where it's because people are simply not having as many children to fill up the population, or people are outside of their ethnic group and they feel like, so in a minor, what's the word, in a microscopic view, this would be true, like the claim that not having children is going to like impact like the ability for society to continue, because there will always be people that will make the decision to not have children. And I feel like even if everybody decides not to have children for varying reasons, some people might decide that they still want children because their particular reason for having children has been negated by modern science. So I feel like humanity will always continue until we reach a state of like enlightenment where we feel like the need to continue to exist is pointless because there's no future or knowledge ahead. In some cultures that a man needs to father children in order to be considered successful. And I think this mostly really applies to women as well, that a woman needs to birth children to even be considered an adult. So like for those two situations, I feel that is just stupid. Because I remember this conversation I had with Biola. She was really disgusted when like somebody she knew, like she still knows the girl who ought to be in secondary school, is trying to get herself referred to as like or like is like the pronoun for an adult in Yoruba. Like she's trying to get somebody else referred to as because she has given birth to children. And the reaction, the clear disgust in Biola's voice, so she was like, I know when this bitch was born. I know when she was born. Just because she popped out a human being, she's had at an irresponsible age, mind you, she's now having the illusion that she feels that she's more of an adult than I am. What kind of rubbish and nonsense is that? Oh my god, that incident was very funny. I don't understand how people attach like the irresponsible creation of a human life with adulthood. That's really reckless. Yes, the view that spending time with one's nephews, nieces, or stepchildren is sufficient for one's own happiness. Yes, because they might as well be your children, and being there for them, listening to things that they feel they might not be comfortable, they want to tell an adult, but they do not necessarily want to tell their parents. So that's why I think even if I ever become a parent, I want to also surround them with adults who they feel they can talk to things that, no matter how open I am with them, they want to talk to another adult who is not me. So like, I don't mind not being that kind of adult. The view that one's friendships and relationship with adults are sufficient for one's own happiness. I think it depends on the context of the society. But if you lived in Nigerian society and the current Nigerian culture, because obviously I feel like a lot of similarities come with the improvement of social standing in like whatever like nation you are. This is not a good enough reason at all, because your friendships will deteriorate, and for a lot of Nigerians, family is like the only thing. So was I antinatalism, the belief that that it is inherently immoral to bring people into this world. I'm going to like click on this like link and go on to the other place and like proper look at it, because it aligns with a lot of my like subconscious beliefs, and I want to go on and like read further about it. Moreover, the parents can never get the consent of the unborn child. Oh god, this is like my shit, like hype. Therefore, a decision to procreate will be an imposition of life. Yes. Imposition of life. Note that some child-free people explicitly reject antinatalism and may even like the children of others, but do not want. I feel like, why would you explicitly reject? You can like the children of others, but you do not want. I don't think I don't know, maybe it depends. I'll probably like branch out from antinatalism, but I don't think antinatalism says you don't like children. Antinatalism thinks you're a horrible asshole for dragging them into this world, which is something I see. But like, also understanding that this is your own personal views. I feel like a perfect individual is said that they understand that this decision is selfish and they've chosen to do it. So it's important that they face all consequences of bringing a human being into this world, and understanding that they can answer that question, this child's questions, and try their best to guide this individual that they brought into the world. So it's very confusing to me that people would think that antinatalists wouldn't like children. I think that, I don't know, my own concept of like, based on like this rough idea, is that I think antinatalists really like children, but think you're just an asshole for dragging them into this world. And I know this ties into something I said earlier, where I was like, but what about your parents? Like, do you hate your parents? And I was like, I don't hate my parents, because I've chosen to love them. The belief that having children is wrong, knowing that there are so many children open for adoption. I don't think that having children is wrong. But I feel like you can have children and still, adopt more if you can afford it. And yeah, I feel so. The belief that people tend to have children for the wrong reasons. Yes. Oh my god, I'm on this. This is like the strongest thing I agree with. Like, people tend to have children for the wrong reasons. Like no, like that's what leads to a lot of children being neglected, treated horribly, and it makes me fucking angry. Like, who the fuck asked you to fuck? God. Audio problems. The belief that it's irresponsible to just try what parenthood is like, which I agree. You can everybody that comes up with the whole, why don't you just try? You don't know. That's the very irresponsible advice. Like, no. Believe that one can still contribute to the education of children to become happy and empathetic beings that society needs, without becoming a teacher, or without becoming a parent, which is something I feel is important. You can find your way and aggressively try to improve the world without adding somebody of your own. And countering overpopulation. Like I said, I think I would say like I said. The reason I keep saying like I said, I lost like a shit ton of audio. Having this situation where you realize that having children, you might say that you might have like, especially somebody who is like in Nigeria, like I feel like our country is going to hell sometimes, and we may not become part of this kind of situation, and it's really scary that your children, like, especially if you are forced to leave them behind in this world, and that kind of scary thing. But I feel like the important thing is that regardless of whether or not you are choosing to have children, it's important that we focus that the humans that are available are how will we call it, they are well educated, well exposed, they understand society, that whatever government is trying to create humans, so it's trying to ensure that people exist, or is trying to push for like an ideal, whatever government is trying to push that in place, it's important that they ensure that the quality of human that is available, in quotes, I lost you, I feel so sad, the quality of human that is available, that is in quotes, is high, so that we ensure that societies are moved forward, our societies are amazing, our societies, humanity can go far because the humans that are available are amazing. So yeah, I think that's it. So like, what does it say about Nigerian, like Dio's personal philosophy based on that, like that Donald Glover like clip from Community, where he was like, based on, after having a lot of thoughts and going through this over and over and over again, I have decided that we should sleep on it. Like seriously, I have decided that I will look at this again once I become financially independent, once I become an individual that is able to travel and visit places, like, and once I figure out a game plan on how to get there, then I feel I can then confidently say that I am ready to make this decision. So like, yes, I want to achieve financial independence first. Once I do that, and if that never happens, then I guess I'll be childless. If I never achieve financial independence, then I will not have children. But if I achieve financial independence and I'm able to travel, and I'm confident that I can make my child a global citizen, because there are some things that I may not be able to control, and accepting the fact that I cannot control these things, but I can give my child the tools to, oh no, why does this thing? I can give my child the tools to improve themselves, improve their society, and a confident individual that even if I go, I'll be fine. And again, about the whole thing about needing children to take care of like yourself as an old person and what have you, I don't know, maybe I'll probably look at it in my thoughts on suicide, because I feel that's an important, like, just wanting to off yourself if you find yourself in a situation where your body no longer functions and you have nobody to care for you. But like, that would be like when I eventually sit down and clarify my thoughts on suicide. So yeah, it has been a personal code of conduct, and see you people next week. This has been quite long. I'm kind of happy about it.